Some of my favorite recipes that I like to do at home are simple ones where you just throw everything in the skillet, cook it very quickly, and you make a quick pan sauce. And the recipe I have for you today is exactly that. And it is going to be pork chops Marchand de Vin. Marchand de Vin here in Louisiana, it means merchant's wine sauce. And because New Orleans was this wonderful port, we had lots of wine coming in from France through the port of New Orleans, which then went through the rest of the country. And in New Orleans, they created this simple sauce that is absolutely fantastic and easy to prepare. So let's just jump into it. You know, I just went to the market and bought some pork chops. These are only about a ½ inch thick. And what's perfect about these is they're going to cook very quickly in our pan. So we're already off to a good start. And again, this is a very simple recipe with just a few ingredients. And we're going to start by seasoning it very gently with a little bit of salt and a little bit of black pepper. And that's it. You know, Louisiana cuisine also oftentimes gets this kind of misnomer that everything's spicy, but oftentimes just seasoning something really well with generous amounts of salt and pepper is all you need, and that's all I have right here. Now we're ready to go into our skillet. Working over high heat, we're going to put a little bit of extra virgin olive oil in here, and we're going to get these pork chops searing right here in the pan. And that's what we're looking for whenever we put the pork chops into the pan. We're looking to get that sizzle. We want to hear that snack, crackle, and pop, because that lets us know that the meat is starting to cook and getting a really great sear, and that's exactly what we want. Now, searing the meat on each side, we're doing a couple things here. We're starting to caramelize the outside of the pork chop, which is going to give it great flavor and depth by that browning and that caramelization process. We're also creating texture as well, because that's what's going to give it that wonderful crunch and crust on the outside of our meat. And then we're also creating great flavor from that caramelization process, and we're locking in those natural juices that we have in the meat. So it's so critical at home to make sure that as we're cooking, to make sure that we're following all these proper methods to really maximize flavor. That's what we're trying to do here. When we only have a few ingredients, just really focusing on our technique is really what's going to elevate this dish and give it really fantastic flavor. So it's important that we take it and really get a good sear right here on the meat, and that's exactly what we're doing here. And it doesn't take long, only about maybe 2 to 3 minutes on each side. What we're trying to do is reach, if you're ever worried about how much you should cook your pork chop, we're looking to get an internal temperature of about 140 degrees. And if you look right here, this is exactly what we're looking for. We're starting to get some of that nice brown crust on the outside of the meat, and that's where a lot of that wonderful flavor is going to come from. So just let that cook again, 2 to 3 minutes on each side, and you're going to be good to go. All right, after we have the pork chop nice and browned on each side, again, it's cooked through, we're going to go ahead and take these off and put them right onto a little platter just to get it out of the way for a second. They'll go back into the skillet. But now we're ready to make that sauce. Now, using the same pan that we cooked in, and this is important, you still have a little bit of that oil left over. We're going to go in with a little bit of chopped shallot right into here. And what we're looking to do is, through the cooking process, we got all those wonderful brown bits right here on the bottom of the pan. And by adding the shallots in here, and then we're going to follow that up, just cook this quickly, then follow that up with a little bit of red wine. This is that Marchand de Vin we're talking about. Oh yeah, we cooking. Following up with that red wine, what that's going to do is start to lift up all those wonderful caramelized bits. Again, where a lot of our flavor comes from. So whenever you hear, you know, the chef say something like deglaze the pan, what that means is we're looking to get up all those wonderful caramelized bits, which is just going to add more flavor to your pan sauce. Now, we're going to let that reduce just for a second, and then we're going to follow that up with some beef broth. Now, we live in this wonderful world now, and I suggest you to do this if you want to try this recipe at home, is don't be afraid. Of course, most people aren't going to be making beef stocks at home, but we have these wonderful resources like the market, so don't be afraid to go to any grocery market, and oftentimes in that soup aisle, you'll find different box broths, whether it's chicken broth, vegetable broth, or in this case, beef broth, and that's exactly what we got here. Just a little bit of beef broth that's going to deglaze the pan and go right into our red wine. which is gonna, now we're just looking to reduce this and add that wonderful flavor. This is gonna add richness to the sauce and really give it texture and kind of balance out that wine. And now we just want it to reduce down by about half. And anytime we're talking about reducing, as you can see, there's steam coming out of the pan. So as this starts to boil, you have some evaporation. And the wonderful thing that happens from there is the sauce is gonna thicken and all these flavors are gonna concentrate and it's all gonna match up well. Now we're gonna come back to our pork chops that we cooked off earlier, and we're just gonna bring them right into the pan and let them just kind of marinate and go into this little jacuzzi here and let them just get all those flavors. And any juices in the pan as well, that's all flavor, and we wanna save that, and we're gonna get that in there. And again, we're just gonna let that kind of cook down. Got us a plate here. And let this just kind of coat the sauce just for a minute or so. And you can kind of flip them over so you get a little on each side. And just let those kind of cook away. And then now, man, we're ready to serve this up. And again, I love these recipes that are very easy to do at home. You just throw everything in a skillet and you get some wonderful flavor. Now, if you were serving this at home, some vegetables or rice would be fantastic, or another no-brainer that would go perfect with this would be some mashed potatoes. But we're here in Louisiana, and we have some of these wonderful yellow corn stone ground grits, and I mean, you're not gonna beat that. Anytime you can have a nice piece of pork with a rich sauce, that's gonna pair perfectly with mashed potatoes, or in this case, grits, always. So now we're ready to serve this. We're gonna take one of these pork chops, just put it right on the plate. And then we want to come back with some of this sauce. And this is where all that beautiful flavor comes in. So now we're just ready to ladle generously over the pork chop some of this sauce. It's where so much flavor is going to come from. I also have, here at the restaurant, we have some of these little garnishes that are going to match with this beautifully. This is a little bit of herb-infused olive oil, just to add a little bit of richness. Olive oil with fresh herbs that we pureed in a blender. And because we are dealing with this Marchand or this wine sauce, I also separately took a little bit of red wine and just a hit of sugar and reduced that to get kind of syrupy in a pan, almost like a gastrique, we call that. And that's what I'm going to kind of add to this as well. And then we're going to come back with a little bit of fresh chives just to finish it off. And there you have it, y'all. This is a pork chop Marchand de Vin, a really simple dish that anybody can make at home, and I encourage you to give it a try as well. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you next week with another great recipe. Bye for now.